She was deaf and she was blind, but that didn't stop Helen Keller from writing books and speaking worldwide. Imagine not being able to see anything, not even your audience, not hearing what you're saying, and yet she kept saying, "I am an optimist, and my testimony to the creed of optimism is worth hearing." I'm no Helen Keller, but I am an optimist, and I'm truly grateful that I can see you and hear you. I had a funny art teacher. One Friday, Mrs. Kennedy says to us, "Kids, I'm going to give you a surprise test on Monday." Life is a series of surprise tests, isn't it? They come with no advanced warning. Suddenly, you're on a roller coaster of ups and downs, zigs and zags, just when you think you've got everything in place. A flat tire, divorce, menopause, and then everything, yes. And then everything goes flying. Your test is on. So how do you best your tests? I believe you must remain optimistic no matter what. But how do you remain optimistic when you lose a leg, a loved one, or realize you're going bald? Here's how. As my grandma would say, if you want to remain optimistic, count your blessings. Be grateful for what you have. Your family who loves you, friends that root for you, eyes that see, ears that hear. One writer brought gratitude into sharp perspective. I cried because I had no shoes, till I saw a child who had no feet. It takes practice and courage to keep believing that the glass is always half full. I learned that lesson the hard way, in the middle of one night when the police knocked on my door and said, "I'm sorry to tell you, your brother is dead. We found him in his home. He hung himself." Brian was only 48. Depression killed him. My brother's tragic death taught me that no matter what your circumstance, you must remain grateful and stay optimistic. The glass can never be half empty. When you're grateful, you worry less about what you've lost and focus more on what you've gained. Gratitude can make you optimistic even when you face your toughest tests. If you're already an optimist, wonderful. And if you're not, I understand. It's hard to be optimistic when anxiety and fear grip you, unexpected obstacles trip you, and the tests of life overwhelm you. Do you have days when you feel overloaded by the burdens of life? Your relationships, your job, your health, finances? Who doesn't? But once you're truly grateful for what you have, your fears fade away, your hopes go up, you worry less. Study after study have shown that optimism works. The Mayo Clinic says that optimists live longer, have reduced risk of dying from cancer, heart disease, stroke. They studied pessimists for 30 years and found a 10% increase in the risk of death. The pessimists I know are sadder. The optimists, happier. 15 years ago, I was a single mom with a debilitating disease. Psoriatic arthritis ravaged my every joint. I could barely walk without wincing in pain. Even breathing was painful. My fingers and toes were always red and raw, like giant sausages. It's hard to be optimistic when you're 30 but feel like 80. But pain can sometimes point you towards your gifts and your purpose. I had a beautiful son, Jack, and a job. Not just a job that paid the bills, but a job that taught me to count my countless blessings. For 14 years, My work uniform had alarms and cameras, but that didn't alarm me. As a psychiatric nurse working at maximum security detention centers and hospitals, I cared lovingly for patients who were mentally ill, patients with schizophrenia, mood disorders, depression. Getting punched and literally cleaning up their poop was the easy part. Smelling of poop for hours afterwards was a whole different test. No gratitude there. But even such dirty tasks were overshadowed by the fulfillment I felt in helping the helpless. God's work, higher purpose, whatever it was, I was so fulfilled. And it helped my arthritis pain considerably. I could wear regular shoes again. You already know the simple pleasure you get and feel when you receive a smile of thanks from a homeless person. So imagine the thrill, the exhilaration you feel when a mentally ill patient smiles at you with gratitude, or the optimism you feel when you see their pain receding, or watching them released from a detention center into the waiting arms of family. One morning, 10 years ago, yet another test. I wake up with an unbearable headache. I feel my head is going to explode into 1,000 pieces. But I had to get my son Jack to school. Somehow, I managed to get him there. Call in sick and ask Jack's dad to care for him for a couple of days as I rest up. I lie down and fall asleep. At some point, the phone rings. I try to reach for it, but I can barely move. My head feels 10 times its weight, and my mouth is parched. Oh, and my housecoat is covered in gross green vomit. Finally, I answer the phone that's been ringing and ringing. It's Jack's dad, and he's fuming. "Tracey, why haven't you picked up Jack? You said you'd pick him up today, Thursday." Thursday? Isn't it Tuesday? Next thing, I hear sirens. A paramedic is rubbing his knuckles hard on my collarbone to wake me up, calling my name, "Tracey, Tracey." When I come to, I can't see anything from one eye, and I have double vision from the other. Where am I? A strange voice. "You've just had brain surgery." Brain surgery? What kind of surprise test is brain surgery? Turns out I had a tumor in my brain the size of a grape. Life is full of ironies, isn't it? A psychiatric nurse that cares for mentally ill patients becomes a patient, ends up with a tumor in her brain, loses her dream job, can't remember things. Like what comes next in this speech. In fact, I've had almost as many brain surgeries as Taylor Swift has had boyfriends. Each surgery has been followed by months of rehab and sleepless nights. They say count sheep and you'll fall asleep, but how many sheep can you count? Lying in bed, I would count 800, 801, 900. But then I would remember my grandma's words. Count your blessings. I would start counting my blessings, and I would soon lose count, get all optimistic, and suddenly, it's morning. One such blessing is Ted. He married me in 2010, knowing I had a brain tumor. We have a lovely 4-year-old daughter, Riley. Who says women with brain tumors can't make babies? And who says you can't become a mother at 43? The rehab after my third brain surgery was particularly long and difficult. Just when I think that I've recovered, my surgeon calls me in for a consultation, and even before Ted and I can sit down, he says, "Tracey, your tumor has grown again. You need another surgery." What? A fourth brain surgery? This has got to be the last one, and this time you need to get the tumor completely out. I can't, and I won't. If I try to remove the tumor completely, you will either be paralyzed for life, or you will have no new memory. You won't remember anything new after the surgery. Everything you do with your 6-month-old daughter will mean nothing to you. And as if I wasn't upset enough, he said one more thing. If you insist on removing the tumor, you will have to get another surgeon. On the drive home, I was devastated. Until Ted says to me, "Tracey, I love who you are, as you are, brain tumor and all. That surgeon has saved your life. He's our blessing. That tumor has no power over you or any of our blessings. Let him do his best." So that's how I had the same surgeon do my fourth brain surgery 4 years ago. And guess what? Since then, no more brain surgeries. And I'm still here. And so is the tumor. When you have a tumor, it helps to have a sense of humor. Here's a little secret. Nurses make terrible patients. So that's why my kids are now counting their blessings and praying, "Please, God, no more brain surgeries for Mom." Yes, the tumor is still there, but it's just there. It has no power over me. The more I live every day with gratitude, my days get longer. My gifts mean more. I don't know what tomorrow brings. Nobody does. But today is beautiful, and today is the perfect day to be happy, hopeful, and grateful. Remember, no matter how old you are, your brain is always building new neural pathways. It is never too late to practice optimism on a regular basis. Becoming optimistic is like building a muscle. You just have to keep repeating the exercise. The happiest of people don't have the best of everything. They make the best of everything they have. When you are forced to deal with life's challenges, look at your glass as half full. You can overcome any adversity if you approach it with a deep sense of gratitude for what you have. And when you do that, you will worry less about what you don't or what you may lose. Instead, count your blessings and remain optimistic about the future. More than ever, this world needs more optimists. Helen Keller was one. Ted is another. And I'm living proof that no matter what, you can remain optimistic. Optimism is worth hearing, seeing, and practicing.